Welcome to Pathways to Peace, creating peace inside and around us with emotional intelligence, or EQ. With your host, Matt Perelstein. In every episode, we explore the art, science, and magic of EQ for peace, power, and purpose in life. You can find this show at www.eqforpeace.org and on YouTube, LinkedIn, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, Stitcher, and more. Now here's the host of Pathways to Peace, Matt Perelstein.
Hello. Welcome, everybody. Thanks for joining us. I'm here again with Dr. Bill Overton. Woohoo! He is one of my main men from eqforpeace.org and has been studying peace education. So welcome, Bill. Say hi.
Thank you very much. I'm Matt. Hello, everybody. Good to be here.
All right. Good. Thanks for joining us again. I wanted you to come back because you've been studying peace education, which we don't know that much about, and we need to. It turns out that there's I'll let you talk about it, but as a organization and as our intention is to create peace everywhere, we need to teach people how to create peace inside of them and around them. And it turns out that there's peace education is a whole subject matter, right?
Right. It's really remarkable. One of the things that I've found is that there are tons and tons of organizations as well as literature out there written about peace and specifically about peace education. To be honest, as an educator, I'm not sure I ever knew that existed. And it's remarkable because one of the things that they all kind of say is that why don't we have peace now? And they don't come up with a good reason. Nobody has a good reason of why, except for one person, Deepak Chopra, thought that it's because we're distracted by our material goods and as well as things that are not so peaceful, such as things that Gandhi would think as passive violence.
Yeah. You're right. I hear what you're saying. And also, from what I understand, it doesn't pay as well. There's money in war, and there's less money in peace. And so that is a big issue we're going to have to resolve.
Absolutely.
But in the meantime, go ahead. Sorry.
Well, I mean, it's one of those things that, I'm convinced after all the reading I've done that, we can have global peace. And that to me also includes, familiar peace, neighborhood peace, as well as individual peace. But it really means that we have to commit to it. We have to think about it, put it in the forefront of our minds like we can, and check ourselves if we're doing and thinking, peaceful thoughts. And some of the things that Gandhi thought with the two kinds of peace, passive and physical. The passive one is something that is definitely prevalent in our lives today, which one of the things would be, taking care of the environment. And so that would be, he would call that a form of violence if we polluted or we allowed pollution to happen. Inequities would be, in his mind, a way of a kind of passive violence. So first thing we have to ask individually as well as collectively is, are we nonviolent? And if we're not, it kind of explains everything. But if we consider ourselves to be nonviolent or want to be nonviolent, we have to think through all our thinking as well as our behaviors and actions. And so I think it's possible, but it does mean we have to put it in the forefront of our minds and go on that journey towards that.
Right on. Yep. We need to have an attitude toward that. And what I'm not sure we're going to be able to change the military structure and such, and the financial part of it anytime soon. But what we can do, and what I'm excited about doing, and what you've been researching into, is how do we start that inside? How do we have an attitude toward peace, and how do we have how do we educate ourselves on, and kids and everybody, on how to create peace in our life, right?
Well, that's the other thing that's to me really remarkable about what I've read is that it's not that hard. Basically, it just is putting it in the forefront of our minds, you know. Um, And
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, it's in classrooms and stuff, it's basically anytime you do any activity or lesson, whatever, that includes elements of acceptance and respect and inclusion and so on, equity, you are practicing, you know, peace. And so basically one thing we don't do is that I think we're afraid to talk about it or mention the word because I've done it before with classes, and when you tell adults, they kind of roll their eyes, like, "Yeah, great, you can do that." And we've always seen it as so impossible, but it is very possible. And I think that when you mention, the war machines and stuff like that, those are going to be big, but those can be influenced by us if we strive for unity. Peace is a connectedness. It's an acceptance. It's basically something that we kind of strive for in our own behaviors, and then expect it of other people around us. So if we're unified and we don't see us and them, one of the greatest, most common sources of conflict is when we create an us and them mentality. And when we have an us and them mentality, no matter what it is we're talking about, it's easier to belittle and demean and actually, kill and wound and hurt. And so if we can break down those walls and um, see that there's unity and create unity everywhere. One article that I read from one organization says that most of us live in a world where we're used to striving for superiority, and whether it's our race, our gender, our financial well-being. I mean, everything we want the superiority. And when you see the world that way, then you are always going to be in a survival mode, and sometimes attack versus trying to fix or unify. So again, it's a mindset that is totally possible. I believe that with time and the pressure from, let's say, 8 million people, 8 billion people, that the war machines could calm down. But we have to look at the commonalities behind groups that are having issues, or between families that are having issues, or neighborhoods that are having issues, and try and look for the unifying kinds of concepts, and be willing to help out and to sacrifice if necessary. And if we can't share our wealth, and if we can't share our time or energy, and what people share with us, what we need, um, then it's a tough way to go. But if we try and unify, and that can start best, I think, in classrooms. I think the younger the better. That we're looking for nonviolence, both physical and passive, and we're looking for behaviors that are conducive to peace, be respectful, and sensitive, and all these other things. A lot of it is held in the concepts that related to social emotional learning and emotional intelligence. They're kind of, to me, one and the same. So when you're practicing those with yourself or others, you're practicing peace. One person said, I think this is really cool, is that when you think in the same the way as you act, and I can't remember the third one. Actually, I'm drawing a blank, and I don't have my slides here. Basically, you are experiencing peace when your actions, your thoughts, everything about you. Thank you. Goes to this. I'll come back to some of these. Basically, you are, in a peaceful situation. So your think, say, and act are aligned. You found inner peace, and that can be on just me, or it can be, a neighborhood or whatever. Um, if I can go back a little bit, if you don't mind. Um, According to Gandhi, these are some of the things that would be included in called a passive violence. So if I don't see myself as violent, but when I started looking at this list, I go, well, I'm actually very, passive violent. I'm, I try towards, a better, greener way of living, but I'm not. And so basically, I'm perpetuating violence. Some people say that if you have violence and conflict, I mean, violence, both kinds of violence, basically you're looking at conflict. And one reason is that because that would create a situation where there's poverty, and poverty is that imbalance again. So that if we could create ways to solve some of these other problems, which I believe we can, then we're talking about a peaceful, moving towards a peaceful environment, peaceful way of life, peaceful world. They say that also is that like even our schools and even in our churches and families, oftentimes we have this, we allow or perpetuate competition, or we perpetuate thinking that everything is needed to be superior, or the fastest, or the smartest, or all these other things, instead of trying to spread that out. Anyway.
Yeah, no, it makes a lot of sense. It's not rocket science. Like I said, it's not particularly complicated or highly technical or any of that. It's just being emotionally intelligent, in my opinion. It's about empathy, compassion, understanding, inclusion, etc. And that sounds easy, but after generations, it's not so easy. Not so easy
Well, I
anymore,
think that
right?
it isn't, but at the same time is that I think there's a new clarity to, what peace is. And I think that first of all, if we stop rolling our eyes to people that are trying to be peaceful, because, it is possible on a small step scale as well as a large scale, but it's got to kind of ripple out. One thing that we need to perpetuate is the thinking that, and the belief that humanity is one, and that we're all connected, and diversity humanity is expressed in diversity. So the idea that, and we say it in big times, and we see it at the dinner table, and we say it in our classrooms everywhere, that we are one, and we need to treat everybody else like they're a part of us, and so striving for connection. Also, other people, and I love what some of these people wrote about, and I found about that. It's more about generating it than it is finding it. So we're not going to find peace; it's elusive, but we can work towards generating it. I think that's important. One of the things, if I move ahead to the slides, that there are some different things that the peace programs can be and should be. These are recommended from a variety of different organizations, and a lot of it is just good teaching. It's relevant, it's frequent, it's everybody's part of it. There's social emotional learning in it. It's integrated in every subject, just like social emotional learning can be and should be. Includes social justice concepts, be aware of biases. And this is the one I like the most. It should empower and activate. That means that we see and help facilitate students of all ages, and for that matter, adults of all ages, to do something towards that peaceful cause. And that means things like I mentioned before, like spreading out wealth or helping out, and all these things, these behaviors that are peaceful. And this is kind of where we can and should go.
Right on. Right on. So, one of the things I've been very impressed with you is that you taught for what, 30 something years, and then you were a principal, and you've tried this stuff. Not just, this is not just theoretical. You've actually tried it and done it. And so, can you share some of your successes there? Because it's pretty impressive.
Yeah, I mean, the amount of stories I could tell, like, would last way longer than this. This is a podcast, but a lot of success. But part of it was putting these things that are in front of you, as well as the importance of being peaceful and spreading and expecting peaceful behaviors. as number one. I think that I never wanted kids to go home, mad or sad. So we made sure that we cleaned up all our stuff as a classroom before we went home. Sometimes I had to leave I let my kids out way late, but nobody seemed to complain too loudly, at least. And the other thing is that it can be done again in a classroom setting. One of the best examples to me of talking about peace is in literature. Whatever fictional literature you're reading, with a class or to a class with a class, there are elements of characters doing something. Usually there's some kind of adversity, which is by itself something to discuss and use as a model for your students. And it's also then follow-up questions that bring it to a peaceful place is what could he or she have done? And so basically, you start making these things come alive. Um, Integrating, to be honest, in math was a little bit tougher for me, but I found some ways, especially when it comes to statistics and so on. Um, but you can do this. You can do this if it's the most important thing to you. In teachers, time is your enemy, and every teacher I've ever talked to, they're always feeling pressure to do something, do more, do standards. They can't do all this stuff, and the way the expectations are now, I believe that's probably true. The problem, though, is that it's also a choice of us. Um, and I'd say, as a school or as a classroom, making that explicit to everybody that this is what you're going for. It doesn't mean you're not teaching the subjects or the standards. It doesn't mean you're not teaching other things. It means that you're just including that as part of your curriculum. And so you spend time on the social emotional, you spend time on peace. History lessons become examples of peaceful situations or ways to deal with peace or ways not to. What could have been done to, help some, past leaders to, back down in their aggression. Um, and so I think that it's instead of let's stop them, how about starting with the question is, what do you need? Why do you need it? And, is there a way we can help? Sometimes if you get the wrong leaders, I think that that's where the doors get closed. But at the same time, in most situations, people are needing something. What do we fundamentally want as a person? We want to survive. We want to be safe physically and emotionally. We want to be secure. We want to eat. We want to, have shelter. These are all things that that the world should actively, and each of us individually actively pursue to help out in our own way. Um, and then we did some of those things, when I was principal, especially, and actually in the classroom too, as far as changing the world. Kids can do it. Kids get it at a very early age, and they want to help out. And so basically, taking their lemonade stand money and putting it towards an organization that is doing something meaningful, having canned foods, kind of adventures or collections, And so there are all kinds of things that schools, teachers can do, but you have to first of all put it at a priority. That peace in your classroom, peace in your kids, is the most important thing, and that's what we're going to do first. But it's not another subject, and it doesn't have to be seen that way. It basically, the rewards are tremendous when you're actually able to establish that kind of culture, the kind of giving culture, the kind of looking out for each other culture, the kind of acceptance culture that, it doesn't matter who you are or what you're doing or how annoying it is or whatever, you're still okay. And you're still loved. Love is another word that doesn't come into discussions about education very often, and yet a lot of the literature that I read are explicit and say these environments are loving, these environments aren't. And I think that while that needs to be kind of ramped up, at the same time as reducing the stress of fear that's out there, doing what you can to find out why people are afraid or why people are bullying each other or whatever, and try and get to the root of it, and instead of treat symptoms.
Wow, very good points. I love that we're talking about starting with the inside, working with kids and everybody to start with the inside, and then spreading that outward. And what I hear you doing is teaching people how to do that. We don't use the word peace. We don't use the word love much in our conversations, in our families, in our schools, etc. And you have done that, and very successfully. So I love that I love that we're using the word love.
Mm.
I love that we're using the word peace, and that we're actually teaching it as a goal for all of this, right?
Yeah, I think that also is that I think one thing that I've never experienced is that somebody doing an activity with somebody where they actually envision what a peaceful world would look like. And if you and I don't think as a humanity, as a species, that we actually have that vision in mind, so it becomes an illusion, it becomes something that is not possible, it becomes a fantasy.
Mhm.
The only thing
Fantasy.
I'd add, Matt, is I don't believe that it has to start with the inside. I think that, and I've seen this lots of times with kids, is that you can do it simultaneously. And so some of the time we're talking about how they debriefing how they were at recess, and what kind of emotions came up there and what problems need to be solved, whatever. That's kind of that small, more social unit. And then also working with people learning about expressing their emotions and identifying their emotions. That's a little bit more individual. But at the same time, I've seen very young kids get really energized about helping, people that they don't know, people that they know exist, thousands of miles away. And you try and do what you can to bring that forward and make it more tangible for them. And we've had some success with that, and there are lots of organizations that will help you out with that. So it can be simultaneously. I don't think we should kind of wait for one to get to the other, and do it sequentially. I think it's just, let's just put it all out there, and make it every kind of our way of life, you know
Right on.
being
Yeah.
kind and being empathic. These are all
Yeah.
things that we can check ourselves with, and check our kids with, and groups or whoever, neighborhoods, whatever. One thing that I started for myself that I find interesting as an exercise for myself is have I created in this an us and them? you know um
Yep.
I sometimes watch sports, and that is totally competitive and totally an us and them.
Yeah.
And yet we
Yeah.
have tens of thousands of people each weekend, ranting or rabid about their team. So are we really perpetuating peace through those systems? I hate to say let's not do professional sports anymore, but the same idea
No.
of showing the other side, and showing what place it holds in our society. And maybe we shouldn't be so irate when somebody makes a mistake on the baseball or football field. So anyway, and
No.
so it's interesting, the us and them kind of perpetuation of conflict.
Mm. Yeah, I hear you. That is sports is probably kind of the definition of us and them for among other things. But and I watch a lot of sports too, and I have the same issue as you. But I do I like it. Interesting in sports is that how much it can matter to you or how much it can not matter to you. It's totally optional whether you give a darn about sports or not. So that's kind of something. But they're also, I think they're trying to create it more as a game. It's a game. So if you don't have to be against the other people, or especially against the other fans. You can be peaceful and still be competitive at the same time. So
Yeah, I
you
that
have go ahead.
actually some people, I mean, Gandhi's being one of them, that would say that competition is not is competition is a form of violence. And so the
Yeah, it is.
idea, so
It is very
maybe
definitely,
there's
especially
a way,
football.
a way of tempering that, and making
Mhm.
it more, at least show its place in a peaceful world, versus an either or, taking it out or putting it in. So I think there's
Mhm.
room for lots of dialogue, but thinking about it, I've consciously over the years had to train myself, wean myself off of the addiction and the draw of, weekend sports, and I think, and I've had to
Mm.
consciously, kind of like, okay, I'm going to do something else instead of sitting down for 3 hours and watching this game, whatever. And it's not easy.
Mm.
And now I'm married to a
Yeah.
person that likes it. So I've taken steps backwards in the last few months. Anyway,
Uh-oh.
but it's a journey, it's all a journey, and checking yourself,
Yeah. Yeah, I played rugby for 6 years, and one of our bumper stickers was "elegant violence." It's very
Yeah.
definitely violence, but it doesn't have to be off of the field. We tried to be as friendly as possible, so it's just a game if you can do it that way. And speaking of games, you have down in your slides, I think the third to last one starts with where you can create peace education, starting with games, right there.
Yeah.
So you want to talk about that a little bit, because that's pretty cool.
Well,
You,
sure.
like you
First
said,
of all,
it
there's
doesn't have to be its own subject.
Yeah, right. No, it can be in everything. Excuse me. Anytime you have people doing anything, there's potential for discussion and debriefing about on the emotional
Yeah.
side and the peaceful side. So whatever game you play, whether it's PE or whatever, with your students or yourselves or your kids, debriefing, sitting down afterwards and saying, okay, so, how did that go? And work out any problems
Mm.
that or difficulties or misunderstandings or whatever. But then also, what does this have to do with peace? And there are certain elements in every game, whether it's cooperation or teamwork and being aware of other people's needs or something like that. There are organizations that perpetuate cooperative games. Um, and same thing with
Mm.
all the others. You can do it in projects, and our projects are really great too for reflection. Like, because everything you do if you're creating some work of art is a decision. So I'm going to take this crayon, and a good question to ask is why? What was it about?
Mm.
Why did you put green there? Why did you put blue there? And
Mm.
why did you put a curve there instead of a straight line, kind of thing? So these are all decisions, and part of a fundamental
Mm.
part that goes beyond or below, I guess, as kind of the foundation, is communication and knowing yourself. And so basically reflecting or having people help you to reflect on some of the decisions you're making. I include decision making in that too. And one thing I tried to do in my classroom was create as many opportunities for kids to make real decisions, um, as possible. And I've seen phenomenal kindergarten teachers operate that way. And then debrief it,
Yeah.
and let kids, feel the consequences of doing something off task, and I guess that didn't work for you, did it, kind of thing. So it's really kind of a beautiful thing to watch that in action.
Okay. Beautiful. That's great. I like to see that it can be integrated into all the other subjects, or embedded, I think is your word, right?
Yeah,
So
yeah,
I got to ask you though, how do you do peace in math? You do peace in
yeah.
math.
Well, like I said, that's a little bit more challenging,
Yeah.
but if you can sometimes touch it by whole number operations, like what does actually addition mean, and what does it mean to people or things or our lives?
Oh, oh,
What does division mean?
oh,
And even using those
that's
words
clever.
with
Okay.
kids is really
Um,
helpful. Like, are you being divisive right now? Are you right now your behavior
oh,
dividing our family, or bringing it together, or are you adding our family together? So there's ways. And also, I think probably the best way, especially for older kids, is tapping the United Nations statistics, and having people and kids look and try to understand what those numbers mean. What does gross national product mean? And they can
mm,
understand these things a lot at a lot younger age than we think they can. I know that,
mm,
some of the things I've done with even 10, 11-year olds, their understanding has been really phenomenal. You need to scaffold these things. You need to talk about them explicitly, each concept and each number, but at the same time, it gives them an excellent vantage point to think about statistics. We're inundated with information, and some of those are
mm,
statistics. And when somebody says that's 35%, what does that mean? Up to 35% of what? And
mm,
and uh And since we're talking about nowadays trillions of dollars and billions of people, you know, the better sense we have with number sense and other concepts too is, you know, are important.
Nice. It just reminded me, I was laughing to myself because it reminded me of a joke is, why is 6 afraid of 7? And the answer is, do you know? Because 7, 8, 9. Anyway,
That's very
that's
good,
not
man.
peaceful. Yes, thank you, thank you.
You should
I
get a
can't
new writer.
remember very many jokes, but I got a couple. Anyway, all right. So go down 2 more slides to Mother Teresa. That's a great picture right there.
Yeah.
Peace begins with a smile. I love that concept, and you use that as well, right? Starting with a smile, right?
Well, you know, this shows how small and how easy it is to begin peace right now.
And free,
I
and
actually
free,
have a
mostly.
friend without knowing that Mother Teresa said this. A good friend that uses this at the bottom of each of her emails. I think it was
Nope.
something like,
Right.
you know, peace one smile at a time or something like that.
Nope.
And this is
Right.
part of her mantra, and she definitely lives that way. But it's also a reminder to her and everybody else, you know, the things that are important. And I think that if Mother Teresa can do it, we can do it. And if my friend can do it, we can certainly do it. So, you know, so it's the idea of thinking small, making connections, even with you know, your cashier at Safeway, you know, or your Uber driver, or just make conversation and show interest in their lives, making connection and moving towards a world that's unified and and has unity versus, you know, keeping in our own separate worlds.
Yep. Yep. Just yesterday, I was in Safeway and I got some grapes and I was munching on them as we were going. And so I got into the line and I had to ask the lady in front of me, just, you know, if you could scoot over a little bit. And then I offered her a grape and then she's like, "Oh, thank you so much. That was great." And she's an elderly Mexican lady. And she loved it. She says, "Oh, that's so good. Where'd you get those?" And I'm like, "Oh, I'll go get you some while we're waiting and such." And
There you go.
I just thought that was a neat little example of that.
Yeah.
The other was we're starting. Oh, go ahead. Go ahead. Sorry.
No, you know, keep going. I interrupted. Go ahead. Well, I was just going to say that basically I'm a firm believer in random acts of kindness. And so, you know, nobody made you, it wasn't an assignment. And basically, it was in the front of your mind as something that you do, probably naturally. And you just did
Yep.
it. You know, for me, I love engaging people that are strangers. And actually, I'm married to somebody
Many
that
things.
loves doing that too, which is very cool. And what gives us great joy when somebody lights up because you've shown them a little bit of kindness or a little bit of
Yeah.
attention. I've got a
Yeah.
joke with a few of the Safeway, you know, cashiers that you have to know my sense of humor to understand this, but you know, I just, you know, how are you doing type thing, and I say, are you staying out of trouble? And you know,
Oh,
and so you have to check out and make sure you're being careful about that. But
that's
same
good.
time as that, you know, they usually brings a smile on their face, and you know, and they'll say, "But how about you?" And I said, "No warrants out for my arrest right now." So stuff like that. So, you know, these
That
little
you're aware of.
a little bit, yeah, a little, you know, I'm aware of, right? A little bit of humor, a little bit of interest, and like, you know, is this your weekend? Or are you getting off soon? I mean, just a little bit doesn't take anything at all and doesn't take any time or effort, but it just becomes a habit and it gives us great joy for sure. And it lifts their day at least a little bit. At least that's the way it looks like.
Yep.
So the little
The one
things.
I like, one of my favorites is, "Are we having fun yet?"
Yeah,
Just to
right.
strangers. "Are we having fun yet?" And you get some interesting answers. And then my very favorite, of course, is, "Have you ever heard of emotional intelligence?" And I get some great answers to that. It starts a wonderful conversation. I love that. So,
Right. Right.
I wanted to point out real quickly, I think you're done with your PowerPoint, right?
Yeah.
I wanted to point out real quickly this book. I don't know if you can see it, but this is one that we just read recently. We were turned on to it by a professor in India who has started a chapter of the Gandhian Peace Study Center. And when after reading this book, it was a kind of a life changer for me. I was so impressed with how this was written by Aaron Gandhi, which is Mahatma Gandhi's grandson, about his life and his time with Mahatma Gandhi, and it's 10 lessons 10 spiritual lessons for the modern world from my grandfather, Mahatma Gandhi. And I just thought it was very, very, very well done, really simple, a lot of powerful lessons in that book. And one of which, as you mentioned earlier about violence and waste, is just that it was a simple little thing of us throwing stuff away. We throw things away that are still usable, and that waste is violence. He was saying violence toward the environment and such. And I thought that was pretty profound, personally.
You might want to hold that book up again or tell the title again, because it was hard to see. It's moving over. It's hard to see, but basically it's The Gift of Anger is the title. Great book.
The Gift of Anger. Yeah. The other part of that I was really impressed with is that, we teach emotional intelligence, and which is being in touch with your feelings, including the negative ones like fear, anger, and sadness. And anger is one of the most unpopular feelings, and one of the ones that people try to avoid and deny and lie about and that sort of thing. And they do not understand it. And most people are afraid of their own anger. And he's calling it a gift of anger. Mahatma Gandhi is calling anger being a gift. That just struck me right. That in itself, I was going to buy the book. And so, but it's true. He's saying it's good to be angry and to funnel it, to use anger for good. Chapter 1, lesson 1, use anger for good. That's a big deal. And it's use your anger to make good things happen, not bad things happen.
Right.
Yeah.
Great book. Yeah. Great lessons. And it's a great thing to refer to also, is that when you forget that anger is a good thing, that anger is a gift. Sure changed his grandson's life, that's for sure. Anyway.
Yep.
Okay.
So what I would like to do now is to, if you were pretty much done with any final words, Bill?
Oh, I could go on forever, so no.
Yeah, me too. We got to end somewhere. So I'd like to, our EQ for Peace has an official song that I love, that is about peace, and it's about creating it worldwide. And it also is a little bit based on some anger that people had, this is not going the way we want, and it's not happening well. And so they created this song. They created they raised a whole bunch of money with this song. It's a while back, unfortunately. I don't know, haven't seen too many events or efforts like this. So if we could now play our favorite song, one of my favorite songs, in our theme song for EQ for Peace, called "We Are the World." You know it, I'm sure. So here we go. Enjoy. Sing along. Be included. I'm not hearing it personally. I don't know if Bill, can you hear?
I guess you're going to have to sing it, Matt.
Yeah. Uh-oh. All right. Didn't go well. Anyway, there's I can offer, I'll go into the podcast and put the link in there, but "We Are the World" was a effort by a bunch of very, very famous singers. They came and they each sang a small part of it, and they were raising money for Africa. USA for Africa, it was called. And it's a fantastic song. I know you know it. And it's the energy and the point of the song is that we can make a difference. We can make a difference. So I guess we'll conclude. One piece of advice, Bill, for everybody.
Baby steps. We can make a difference, each of us, and it's not limited by age or socioeconomic or geography or like that. And just do it and continue to do it and keep it in front of your mind.
Right on. Beautiful. Okay. Well, thank you for joining us and giving us your wisdom. You've got some of the best experience in this neighborhood that I know of. So I appreciate you sharing that. and we will be peaceful, reach out to other people, connect. You don't have to be separated. We don't have to be distant. We don't have to be above or below. We can be equal and connected. So let's try that inside and out.
Okay.
Thank you all. Take care.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thanks, Bill.
You've been listening to Pathways to Peace, creating peace inside and around us with emotional intelligence, EQ, with your host, Matt Perlstein. Thank you for your positive reviews, comments, and sharing this show with others. You can catch prior episodes at www.eqforpeace.org and on YouTube, LinkedIn, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, Stitcher, and more.